Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you being here. It was a bit shorter practice today, but a lot of situational football. We got there about 18 periods. Big focus, 2-minute. We had end of game situations. Being able to chat. Really install and put guys in high intensity, but obviously situations where you got to be great detail and understanding. I thought it was a really good day of practice in regards to seeing guys respond to that. I loved, we actually presented, an offensive situation, to the guys where they had a timeout and, down 6, and, the guys spoke up and said, we don't want a timeout. We want to have to go out there and execute. We want it to be clean. And even in that, it's kind of how we finished the day. And we had a negative play that showed up, which nobody ever wants, but I thought they had a great response. Ashton had a couple great throws. He was able to extend your ball down the field and finish with a touchdown. That was an encouraging thing, just to be able to see guys embracing the difficult and wanting to put themselves in that position, and then being able to rise up in the moment. I thought we were able to put in some third and extra long situations. I thought the defense looked really good. Was able to create some challenging looks. Seeing guys continuing to grow, in their skill sets, and just showing the versatility of the ways that they can attack. Overall, I was pleased with the work that we got in, and there are some situational things, especially with some of the other quarterbacks that we're going to have to learn from, grow from. But it was good to just as an offense, especially that first group, to see them go out there and operate. You had some big plays. Had some things that you wanted to see. But Deuce, you had a good day. Danzy, had the big play at the end, and then I thought Ashton, overall probably one of the best days. Just in his, you feel his confidence and the things that he's being asked to do. Really like where he's progressing in all areas. It's been good. This last week, I know Malachi was able to get some scrimmage work. We actually went live with him on Sunday, I guess whatever day we scrimmaged. And because I wanted to see him go out there and have to operate, work, get a sense of the mobility, where it's not everything tag mode. You see him just competing. I thought he did some really good things. He's earning more opportunities. There just as he's going through, and I really like just the competitiveness in that group. But like I said, just it's fun watching the leaders continue to push and lead, and Ashton's been very, very pleased with what I'm seeing from him, and just that his continued progress.
First question will be Ira.
And before I roll to questions, I do want to announce that unfortunately Carson Hobbs went down yesterday. He will be out for the season. Definitely disappointed for the young man, and as a guy that came in, went through the spring, transitionally, had new experiences, and some expectations, and unfortunately, it's just you see him and what he was doing through the summer, coming into fall camp, and I thought this last week was some of the biggest steps that we've seen, and just unfortunately went down and had an injury yesterday. That's going to keep him out for the rest of the year, but definitely fully expecting him to make a great recovery and to grow through an adverse situation. And but definitely our hearts are with him, and just so disappointed for the young man, because really saw some progress coming from him.
All right.
You talked about like end of game situations or end of half situations. Do certain players thrive in those situations more than other players, and how do you get a feel for that?
That's a great question. I think absolutely. And throughout the years, you see guys that when the pressure's mounting, when everything's on the line, guys that can truly rely on what to do, be in the moment, understand the situation, but then you also the playmaking ability to go execute it, when the task is required. And there's the guys that just really do thrive in those those moments. I've seen football teams. I think there's certain teams that when that's what you're building towards. You want them to find those situations where they can be fully confident. Not let the the distractions of whatever might be on the clock, whatever might be in the stands, whatever you might see from an opponent. But when you've got confidence in your rules, your responsibilities, any adjustments that you need to make, and then you can go out there and play the game. And that's where you want to be. You want to be in those moments in football games because there's nothing like it. There's the feeling you get in your chest, the excitement, just the emotional swings of it. But that's one of the things I really appreciated today. Coach Herman and I were talking about it right after. He goes, man, we had a negative play that showed up with no timeouts and a 2-minute drive. And I mean, just immediately we went to the next play. And to be able to execute, to be able to put ourselves in that position, a lot of people can start pressing and just trying to do either too much, but just go play the next snap. And it's a situation you find yourself in where you don't necessarily want to be, but you still have opportunity. And so that was an encouraging sign just to see those guys and how they handled today.
Chris?
With the loss of Carson, what does depth at that position look like after the top 4?
Yeah, I think we have got some guys that I think got some great versatility. A guy that I've really been pleased with, and I think we'll probably get a little bit of a look. That is Ricky Knight is really kind of coming along. I think Ricky, you feel just the way that he's been practicing. He's been emerging there at the corner position. We've got guys. Nehemiah Chandler has got some great flexibility of skill set. But I think Ricky's a guy that is pushing. I think has the skill set. I like what I've seen. Kai Jones obviously has been really good playing there, and what we've seen from him, but also to be able to have just added versatility into that position, I think would be really good. And that's the thing I like about that safety nickel position for us. Even with some of the corners, and just how those guys can move, and just obviously the diversity in our game.
Stay there for John.
Just what are you looking for from Ashton, and how are you going to be challenging him across the next couple of weeks leading up to the first game?
Yeah, just continue to get better. I mean, he's showing us the things that we want to see, and it's like I think I said this at some point. I mean, anybody that comes into a program, everybody can say coaches, people can try to put a tag on what somebody is or is not, and ultimately you have to go earn it with your teammates. You got to go show them what you're willing to bring every day, who you are as a person with the good, the bad. And Ashton he's hit a home run in that regards with this football team. And so just to continue to push, stay true to himself, have a focus of improvement every day. And, when this team needs him to carry it. When they need, just whether it's a supporting, word or just, a great example to see, go be that. And so, but he's embraced the expectations, and I think he's definitely earned all the respect of these guys, and he's the guy's played a lot of college football, but definitely playing at a high level right now.
We'll go up to court.
You mentioned him when he was live in the scrimmage. What have you seen from Malachi, and now that you've seen him in person play in front of you, in front of your eyes, what is his potential? What can he be?
Yeah, really excited about him. He's great arm talent. He's an exciting player to watch. He's still learning. Some of the process situations, but what I've really appreciated about him is just coming into the summer, the amount of time that he's spending, the amount of study that he's done to be able to have a grasp. Now there's still a lot of continued work that he has in front of him, in regards to just some of the details in offensively, but obviously just trying to hone to some of the decisions, some of the things that allowing him to be his best, but he's got a great skill set, and really enjoyed how he's come in, and just the kind of like you say, the respect he's earned within that quarterback room of a guy that's going to come and put in the work, and now he's just building that trust and just consistency throughout it.
Come down front for Liam.
With Malachi, with the way that he talked to us about sharpening up his routes, being able to talk the football a little bit better. How have you seen that show up in these first 2 weeks, 2 scrimmages, and what strides has he made?
Yeah, he's you go out and you watch practice, and you see, he's a legit receiver. And last year you saw a really fast athlete that could play the ball, but there was still there's some areas where he could improve in his separation, some of the details of the routes, and I think he's done a great job of embracing that. I think Tim has done an outstanding job within that room of helping those guys grow and play to their game. And but Malachi's got great feet. Obviously a high school running back. He's got vision. He's got separation ability. But like you even see just just every part of his game. His physicality, blocking on the perimeter. But yeah, he's really coming along, and even for him, it's just the continued growth because he's still relatively new to the position. But you've seen some great strides.
Bob?
Coach, you talked about it being a move week. I think after the scrimmage, a move week in terms of depth chart rotations, just figuring out what the scrimmage has meant for certain players. Can you kind of shed some light on conversations and where you feel like the depth chart might be right about now?
Yeah, I mean this is a week that guys are seeing progression, opportunities. Guys that have earned more are getting more, and then guys that need to either be more consistent. They're fighting for reps, and obviously we'll have a compete day, which will be still kind of like a half and half on Saturday, just to see. I want some of the younger guys to probably have a couple of live periods that will let them go. But I mean, just it's just the step, the embracing of the things that are necessary to go play at a high level. And I mean it's been good. I've been pleased. We've had some young players that I don't know if I mentioned him, but like Jordan Crutchfield was a guy coming out of the scrimmage that, man, I got done with the scrimmage. First of all, I watched the film. That guy looked different, and he was here in the spring, made some plays in the spring, but really liked what I saw from him. Isaiah Williams was somebody that hopefully we'll be able to have in full capacity here by this next week. But he was a guy early on that, man, okay, I like what I'm seeing. Got a couple of young Xavier Tiller, Corbin Fordham. I mean, I like those tight ends. I mean, what that's going to be, what that role is going to look like early, we'll see. But whether it's an opportunity to impact the team, I mean, those guys are fighting for that, and it's just really across the board. And definitely got a very talented group of newcomers. And I say newcomers, even guys that have been here since January, but they're fighting to emerge, and guys that have been here that are getting pushed, and they're getting pushed on a daily basis. And the best players are going to play the most, and obviously see how that all fits together and what guys can do.
Aslan?
Kevin Wynn, you lost some weight. We heard about in the off season. Is there like a curve for learning how to play with a different kind of body type? What kind of impact is he making? Does he need to make?
Yeah, I mean, you feel him, especially like in his pass rush situations. He's probably had, a handful this week of just times where you felt his presence of, he's always had great quickness and explosiveness, but now, he's so strong, so he's stout in the run game, but his movements and just being able to finish the primary get off, but now the working on those finishing moves have allowed him to be a lot, I'd say, more impactful. And he's a guy that, he's put in a lot of work. He's very smart, he's talented, he knows what to do, and I think he's going to be a great, going to have a great role within this defense as he continues to emerge. But and he's now at a point where it's not, hey, you can be out there for 1 or 2 plays and you got to get out. I mean, he's been able to play within some sustained drives, and he's dropped 30 pounds. I mean, that's makes it a little easier. It's like a third grader.
John?
With the tight end room, what have you seen from those guys, and then how do you see that affecting your ability to use different personnel groupings out there?
Yeah, that's one of the things just offensively I'm probably most excited about is just you look at the personnel groupings that we can have available of guys that are showing capability. Like, Desiree Rouse was a great addition. To seeing the development of Landon and the things that he can do. He's moving as well as he ever has. Just the toughness of that group is something that I've been really pleased with. Chase Lofton's a guy that we got big expectations, and we've seen some great flashes from. here throughout fall camp. So I mean, it's a group that I definitely think you can see too. Maybe in three of those guys on the field at a time. Grayson Labiad's kind of been a guy that's come in and done a lot of dirty work for us. And he's really kind of emerged and developed a role that I've been pleased to see. So I think we're gonna have a lot of flexibility within that group. Same thing in the running back room. I mean, you look at guys like Ooze and Sam and Trey, and I mean, Jamari Sands has had a really good last week and a half. I've kind of praised him. Zay, I mean, I like that group, and so to be able to see in my history, there's been plenty of times we've been 21 personnel, being able to utilize multiple guys. So just really how it all comes together, it's going to be fun to watch in the ways that we can attack.
Two totally separate questions, but I'll rush them quick. One is, you mentioned after the scrimmage at the offensive line, you were still working some different combinations. Are you at the point now where you guys are locking in 5? And then the other question was about, we talked to Rylan Kennedy yesterday. I was just curious how he's doing.
Yeah, no, O-line, this week we've actually had a couple guys who've been limited, just transparency, but I feel good about it. It's opened the door for some of those guys that are in those competitions to show more reps, and I've been pleased with what I've seen. And right now it's what is that number? Is it 6, 7, 8 guys that we feel comfortable being able to throw in there, and I think some guys are really emerging. I've been pleased with what I saw. Paul's got more opportunities here this week, and I think that it's a guy that played last year as a true freshman, at Troy, and played some big games, and now you're seeing him starting to take that next step of understanding the things that we do. I think he's a talented young man. Sandman's done some really good things. Sean Perret, like those guys, they're pushing. And with the versatility, I think Nate Paps has been incredibly solid for us. Chap, has played a lot of football. Joyner, I mean, those guys are really guys that we feel like can be cornerstones up front. And then you see Otto, who is like he's been a little limited this week, but I mean expecting him to get back, and I really like the growth, and I'm going through everybody. Chim is a guy that's really talented, and just seeing that consistency in his work. But it's a fun group to see, and then we got some young tackles that just got to continue to grow and emerge. But it's a great. I think it's a great group to work with, and now it's the emergence of, hey, who are the guys going to be able to be counted on here in a little over 2 weeks? The time's coming, and it's now. And then with Rylan, I mean, he's been awesome. I mean, a guy that we knew had a lot of athleticism. You look back in past years. I mean, he's been able to play, been able to showcase that. But the thing that probably didn't show up as much as what I'm getting to see is just the physicality. And you can see a guy that can move and line up a lot of different places and come off the edge, and but to see him the way that he's embracing playing the run with the physical nature. Yes, he absolutely can get to the quarterback. I mean, he's tough. Him, Jalen Anderson, those guys have shown a great knack for that, as well as the guys that we have in that room. So I'm very pleased with what I've seen from him.
Last one, Corey.
With Deuce obviously being one of the best in the country, and the way you're talking about Danzy and the strides he's making, is there a world where you have one of the best, like 1-2 receiver combos in the country?
I mean,
and you preach that to them, like go be
no, absolutely
the best duo in the country.
Well, and I mean, Javen Boggs is a guy that he got back this week, and his first day yesterday. I mean, he's full. It's limited him a little bit for himself, but he had 3 or 4 really good plays yesterday. So I'm excited about that room, as well as some of the guys we've talked a lot about. With Jason, and obviously Tay, and Devin coming along. I mean, we got to see those guys. We want to have that mentality that it doesn't matter who's out there. We're going to uphold a standard that room has to be the best. And but with our 2 most experienced being Deuce and Malachi, absolutely they should embrace that challenge. And it's one thing to talk about it. They've got some good numbers to say that to at least put them in a conversation, but go be it. And I think the way that they've worked, the way they've continued to grow, and the way that we're utilizing them, I'm excited to watch it all come together.
All right.